Hi, and welcome to Unit 8. In this demo, we're going to be talking about creating a SQLite database and how that works. With Xcode, bundled with Xcode and bundled with Max, we have a utility called SQLite 3, and we can create this database using the SQLite utility, the SQLite 3 utility. And it's a command line utility. There are other ways to create a SQLite database, but basically the steps to get a SQLite database into an Xcode project for iPhone are pretty straightforward. We need to create the database and then put it into the application's bundle. And then within the application, when we start up the application, we need to check to see if the database of that name exists in the documents directory on the device. And if it doesn't, we need to copy the database from the bundle to the documents directory. Now, there are other things that we can do. We can synchronize, we can look at what's in the database and make sure that we have the latest version and things like that. But the simple steps are those. So we start at the command prompt, and we're going to type SQLite, SQLite 3, and then the name of the database that we want to create. So we're just going to call the database parts.sql. And when we hit enter, we get this interface here. Now we can type help.help to get a listing of help that will help us if you don't know this utility at all. This gives some kind of high-level help for us. But basically what we're going to be doing is creating a couple of tables today. So we use the SQL create table DDL, or data definition kind of language. And that I have already got into a text file here in TextEdit. The first table we're going to create is our catalog table. So we go create table catalog, open paren, and then the fields that we're going to create. Now I should talk about this first table field, ID, integer, primary key, auto increment, because every table we create in SQLite 3, or really in SQL at all, every persistent table that we create for our database should have an ID field of some name. And the structure of that field should be integer, primary key. By doing that, it will auto increment, but if we insert the auto increment keyword after that, what it will do is it will look at all previous keys that were created and make sure that it generates a new primary key that is greater than all of the other primary keys that have been previously generated. And this is what we want. We want to ensure that each primary key for each table is absolutely unique. So by inserting the auto increment keyword here, we're doing that. So ID, integer, primary key, auto increment, this field will appear in every table we create. The next four fields are the part number, the name, the description, and the reorder quantity. And in SQLite, the types are kind of really kind of nebulous. So when we create an ID, we create it as an integer type. Any other thing can really be any other type. We're just giving a good suggestion as to what we're going to use that field as. So part number, name, and description are going to be text. And we're also declaring them to be not null. In other words, I don't want to insert a null into any of these, and I don't want to allow that to happen. When we create a part in the catalog, we need to have a part number, a name, and a description. The reorder quantity we may or may not insert when we actually create the part in the catalog, as we have talked about before, so we don't mark that one as not null, but we do mark it as an integer field. Next, we're going to create a table called inventory. Once again, we have our ID field, our unique field, and then part ID is an integer, not null. Now, part ID is what we call a foreign key, but we're not marking it as a foreign key. In SQL, a foreign key is a key that runs back to another table to get information. So the part ID is going to refer to the ID in the catalog table. So we'll know that we're dealing with one specific part. And then we have the bin that it's going in, and this is a text, and it is not null. And then we have a quantity that we're putting in, which is an integer. And we don't have to mark that as not null because we're still up in the air with management as far as what happens to a part in inventory, let's say, that goes to a 0 or negative quantity. So we don't want that to be not null at this moment in time, but we can change that. We can update the schema, what's called the schema of the table, later on. So how are we going to get this into our parts table? Well, there's a very simple way. We can actually copy the create table statements, and I'm copying, and then I can just paste it into my SQLite interface. And then if I hit enter, I will have created the catalog table. And now, likewise, I'm going to copy the inventory table. So Command C, and then Command V, and enter. Now, I want to make sure that these two tables have been created. So I can do that by typing .tables and hitting enter. And I see that I have two tables in my database, catalog and inventory. Now, if I want to see the actual schema for those tables, I can do that by typing .schema and enter. And I'll see that I have my create table statement for the catalog, and I can just double check and make sure that both of these tables were created with the proper schema. Okay, so that's the first part. Now, we know that we're going to be inserting and deleting and selecting from these tables and updating the table information from the application. And we'll see how to do that in the next few demos. But for now, let's just put some test data in catalog and then do a select to see if our data came in. We know that the ID field is going to be auto-incremented. It will be handled for us. So let's just do an insert query. Insert into catalog, and then I want to put my fields that I'm going to insert into. So part number, name, description, and reorder, and then I'm going to say the values that I'm going to put into those fields. The first three are strings. They're text fields. So values, and then we'll put in PN001, and then the name is going to be part 1, and then the description might be first part created. And then the reorder quantity, let's say that when we get down to 15 of those parts, and we notice that this is not in quotes, this is an integer value, that we're going to reorder. So then we need to close the parentheses, and then with every SQL command that we actually create, we need to put a semicolon to end that command. And then that will read that as the end of the command. So now when I do this, the SQLite prompt comes back, and it's really saying, okay, and we have inserted that part. Well, we can repeat this as many times as we want for as many parts that we want. And we're actually going to use syntax very similar to this when we go into the application and run inserts from our application. So now we can actually say select everything from catalog, and the star refers to all, and then semicolon. And we see that we have, this first number is our ID. It has actually been inserted for us. So 1, and then PN001, part 1, first part created, and then the reorder quantity is 15. So this is basically how we set up a SQLite database. Now, if we say quit, or .quit from SQLite, we get back to our prompt. And now we want to look to see where this database has been created. So if we look in our ebook folder, in other words our user folder, it will have been created there. It's wherever we run the SQLite 3 utility. And we see that we have a file here named parts.sql. So now we can take this file and copy it, and then in our project, the parts room demo, we can actually just put it in to our folder, into our bundle. We can paste it. So let's see. Did I copy it? Let's make sure. Copy parts.sql. And then let's see, iOS text, chapter 8 video, demo 1, parts room. Let's see. Oh, I know why. We'll go file or edit and then paste item. And now when we paste it in, it will be in our applications bundle when we open it. And then we can do the necessary steps to look for it in the bundle, look for it in the documents directory, and then if it doesn't exist in the documents directory, we'll copy parts.sql into the documents directory. Okay, so these are first steps. Thank you very much.